Welcome back to KD Analyzer, where we dissect complex issues with the precision of a brain surgeon hopped up on discount energy drinks. We're talking about Africa, a continent with enough sunshine to power a disco ball the size of Jupiter. Yet millions still live without reliable electricity. Why is that? Why does a continent so rich in resources struggle to keep the lights on? It's a question more perplexing than a Rubik's Cube designed by MC Escher after a 3-day bender. So grab your metaphorical headlamps, folks, because we're about to delve into the tangled web of why Africa is in the dark, both literally and figuratively. Let's flip the switch and get started. All right, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the elephant that was the room. See, colonialism wasn't just about stealing resources, it was about stealing opportunity. European powers waltzed into Africa, plundered its gold, diamonds, rubber, and even its people.
But did they leave behind the blueprints for a decent power grid? Oh, hell no. They were too busy building railways to ship those resources back home, leaving Africa with the infrastructure equivalent of a hand-cranked toaster.
And let's be clear, this wasn't some accidental oversight, like forgetting to pack an adapter on vacation. This was a deliberate strategy to keep Africa dependent and, frankly, in the dark. Now, let's talk about modern-day Africa, where the political landscape can be more volatile than a game of hot potato played with a live grenade. We're talking about countries where the phrase power struggle takes on a whole new meaning.
You see, in many African nations, the stability of the electrical grid is about as reliable as a promise from a used car salesman with a permanent wink. Corruption is so deeply entrenched that it could give a termite colony a run for its money.
And where do these funds often end up? Well, let's just say there are a lot of suspiciously well-lit Swiss bank accounts out there. The worst part? This corruption doesn't just steal money, it steals hope. It's a vicious cycle where instability breeds corruption, and corruption breeds more darkness, both literal and metaphorical. Let's play a little game, shall we? Imagine a world without reliable electricity. No, I don't mean just a blackout during your favorite show. I mean no consistent power to charge your phone, store your food, or even light your home at night.
The only time they experience anything close to a power surge is when lightning strikes a particularly good spot during the rainy season.
It's a stark reminder that while we're busy debating the merits of 5G versus 6G, a significant chunk of the world is still struggling to get access to the most basic electricity. It's a digital divide so vast you could drive a solar-powered Tesla through it and still be in the dark. Now here's a real head-scratcher. Africa is practically bursting at the seams with renewable energy potential. I mean, the Sahara Desert alone receives enough sunlight in a few hours to power the entire planet for a year. So with all this clean, green energy just begging to be harnessed, why is Africa still so reliant on fossil fuels?
Well, my friends, it's a classic case of easier said than done. You see, setting up renewable energy infrastructure isn't cheap. And even when there is money available, corruption often rears its ugly head, siphoning funds away from essential projects. And then there's the whole issue of political will. Let's just say that some leaders are more interested in lining their own pockets than in investing in a sustainable future for their people.
Let's face it, there's nothing quite like a good old-fashioned power outage to spice things up, right? No, I'm not suggesting you start sabotaging your neighborhood transformer for a cheap date night. But in Africa, where rolling blackouts are often as predictable as the sunrise, people have learned to adapt and even find humor in the darkness. Imagine this. The lights go out, the TV flickers off, the kids are whining. But instead of cursing the darkness, families gather around, sharing stories by candlelight, playing board games, or, dare I say it, engaging in some good old-fashioned romance. In fact, some people joke that Africa's frequent power outages are the reason for its booming birth rate. I mean, what else are you supposed to do when the lights go out, the internet is down, and there's not a working refrigerator in sight? Now let's talk about the stark reality of inequality. Because when it comes to electricity access in Africa, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is wider than a giraffe's stride in a limbo contest. We're talking about cities like Lagos and Nairobi, glittering metropolises with skylines that rival those of Dubai, while just a stone's throw away, rural communities are stuck in a perpetual game of pin the tail on the donkey just to find a working light bulb. It's as if someone drew a line in the sand, or rather, a power line, and decided that one side gets to thrive in the 21st century, while the other is left to fend for itself with kerosene lamps and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, someday the grid will reach them. Ah, foreign aid. That well-intentioned yet often frustratingly ineffective attempt to fix the world's problems with a band-aid and a prayer. Economist, Africa has been on the receiving end of billions upon billions of dollars in aid for energy projects over the years. So you'd think that by now the continent would be lit up like a Christmas tree on Boxing Day. Right, economist? Well, not quite. Despite the best intentions, much of the aid money gets lost in a bureaucratic labyrinth of corruption, mismanagement and poorly planned projects. Economist, look, I'm not saying we should just throw up our hands and abandon foreign aid altogether. But we need to be smarter, more strategic, and dare I say, more respectful of the people we're trying to help. Now, let's talk about the uninvited guest at the party. The one who shows up unannounced, drinks all the punch, and leaves a trail of destruction in their wake. I'm talking about climate change, folks, and it's wreaking havoc on Africa's energy infrastructure. We're talking about extreme weather events that make your average hurricane look like a gentle breeze. Floods are wiping out hydroelectric dams faster than you can say global warming. Droughts are turning reservoirs into dust bowls, rendering hydropower plants about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. It's a cruel irony. Africa, a continent that has contributed the least to global greenhouse gas emissions, is bearing the brunt of climate change's wrath. The bottom line is this: climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's here, it's real, and it's messing with Africa's ability to keep the lights on. And unless we start taking some serious action, things are only going to get darker, both literally and figuratively. Ah, African politics, where promises flow more freely than cheap beer at a college party. It seems that every leader has a Vision 2040 or a Plan 2060. Grandiose schemes to transform their nations into gleaming beacons of prosperity. But here's the thing. While these leaders are busy crafting their utopian visions of the future, millions of their citizens are stuck in the here and now, wondering when they'll be able to turn on a light switch without resorting to prayer, witchcraft, or a combination of both. It's enough to make you wonder, do we really need another vision? Or do we just need someone to finally figure out where they put the damn light bulbs? Okay. Before you start fashioning a tinfoil hat to protect yourself from the encroaching darkness, let's talk about the good news. Because despite all the challenges, there are glimmers of hope emerging from the continent. First off, Africa is experiencing a surge in entrepreneurial spirit, particularly in the renewable energy sector. We're talking about young, innovative companies developing off-grid solar solutions, bringing power to remote communities that have never even seen a power line. And then there's Kenya, a country that's practically become synonymous with geothermal energy. They're tapping into the Earth's natural heat to generate electricity, proving that Africa doesn't just have the potential for a brighter future, it's already building it. And let's not forget the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA. This ambitious agreement aims to create a single market for goods and services across Africa, boosting trade and, hopefully, attracting much-needed investment in energy infrastructure. Look, let's be clear. Africa's energy crisis is a complex issue with no easy solutions, but it's not a hopeless situation. This is a continent with more potential than you can shake a solar-powered stick at. The problem isn't a lack of resources, it's how those resources are managed or mismanaged, as is often the case. It's about tackling corruption, investing in sustainable solutions, and empowering local communities. So while we've had a bit of a laugh at the expense of darkness, let's remember Africa's future is bright. It just needs a little help flipping the switch. And frankly, I think we can all agree that a brighter Africa is a brighter future for everyone. So thanks for watching. If you liked this video, Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.